The only way to find out if what I've done is truly cursed is to assess it with a pure being. Okay, wow, she really doesn't want to give it a chance at all. That can't be a good sign. For whatever reason, when I see this, I want to become this. Clickers and infected in general in The Last of Us probably have the most compelling zombie design I've ever seen. Something about the intersection of body horror and a biological pseudoscience explanation of how the zombies work makes my creature design loving brain obsessed. It also doesn't hurt that The Last of Us has an extremely beautiful story and never fails to make me cry. So with the release of Season 2 of the show reigniting my obsession and urge to replay the game, I thought it is finally time to turn myself into a clicker. But it wouldn't be a Kira crafting video without giving the design just a little bit more seasoning. I make just about anything into a corset on my channel, and I've been wanting to make some kind of clicker-inspired look for a while now. Think clicker, but she's trying to look her best for a night out. So let's brainstorm a little bit with the design.
So obviously I wanted to keep to my roots by making the base of this look a weird corset. I wanted to go for an asymmetrical design to give the fungi growing off of the corset a bit of a natural flow. I also want to make this a little bit of a stash busting project, so I want to give the corset a slight skirt with tattered fabrics hanging off of it from my stash. You could probably even make this part of the clicker's backstory by saying she was infected during a prom or some kind of formal event. Weirdly enough, some of my inspiration for this design was also the Silent Hill nurses, so I wanted to keep some of the feminine appeal intact by going for long gloves, heeled shoes, and a deeper neckline, but I also wanted to add plenty of gore by giving her a partially exposed ribcage, hip, and plenty of cordyceps and other fungi growing off of her. I know technically the infection is supposed to prevent decomposition, so maybe she was just injured before the infection fully took hold. I also, of course, wanted to keep the iconic clicker look of the busted skull with fungi growing out of it, so I pulled that from various concept art from the game, but made it my own. The paint job for this is going to be just real fun and super gross, and I can't wait.
Speaking of gross, if you've been rotting away in an apocalypse for over 2 decades, you probably absolutely reek, but you can smell incredible by using this video's sponsor, ScentBird. I am someone who has had a tremendous amount of trouble finding scents that I actually like, and I did find one a couple of years back, and then it got discontinued. Thankfully, ScentBird sent me 4 fragrances to try. 2 I selected myself, and 2 were surprises. Do you want to know what they are? I selected Cherry Bomb by Confessions of a Rebel and Viva La Juicy Noir by Juicy Couture.
Cherry Bomb has notes of cherry liqueur, black cherry, ripe strawberry, sugared praline, and vanilla woods, making it a very sweet, fruity scent with a small hint of woodiness, perfect for a picnic or park day. Viva La Juicy Noir has scents of berries, vanilla caramel, honeysuckle, and gardenia, giving it a juicy floral scent with a hint of sweetness that isn't too overpowering, making it perfect for a night out.
My 2 surprise scents were, I'm gonna butcher this, but Maison Louis Marie's number 14 Isola and Dead Cool's Aura.
Aura is fresh and woodsy with notes of pear, cedar, caramel, jasmine, and vanilla, making it a great everyday scent. And number 14 Isola might be the scent I use the most. The notes of ruby pamplemousse, jasmine, Bulgarian rose, dark plum, and vanilla flower are mature and sultry, making it perfect for a date night and making me feel like a mysterious widow.
ScentBird's packaging is also small and easy to carry with you wherever you go, and their cases easily lock and unlock to prevent leaks. I've actually been wanting to try ScentBird for a while now since I've been on my own personal fragrance quest, so it's great that it's affordable, and it also minimizes the risk of committing to a full-size fragrance before you know it's right for you.
Your first month is only $8, and after that, subsequent months are less than $17, and their selection of over 900 fragrances is both diverse and flexible. They offer recognizable brand options like Prada and Versace, and also more niche labels like Parfums, De Marly, and Roja, so it's great if you know what you like or you're completely new to fragrances. If you don't know where to start, you can also take a scent quiz to help you experiment with scents that will offer you personalized selections based on your preferences, and you'll receive a 30-day supply of each fragrance, so you'll have time to properly experiment and maybe even find your signature scent.
So if you're interested in trying ScentBird, scan the QR code or use the link below. And with my coupon code ALPACA, you can get 55% off at ScentBird. Plus, you'll get free delivery at your door and a free case. You get the product for half the price. That is just $8. Thank you to ScentBird for sponsoring this video and making me smell amazing in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. Now let's get back to it. I feel like this weather is very on brand for what I'm making right now. The first step of this whole process is to make a base corset for all of this stuff to go on top of. Thankfully, I have made a couple of corsets sort of like this in the past, so hopefully I have a pattern in my stash that should already work well for this. I am slightly more organized right now. It's either in this pattern box or that pattern box. Let's find out. Character development. I already have a pattern in mind that should work. I'm thinking I'm gonna try to use the one that I revised in order to make my Queen of Hearts look that I did last year. It was a very long corset with super exaggerated hips, so I'm thinking that should work well for this. Here it is. Hopefully this is all of it, I'm not sure. It is all here, I was able to find it. This should work pretty well for my purposes. I just think that I want to extend it down a little bit further in general and then maybe make it a little bit more asymmetrical, so a little higher up on one side, a little lower on the other side. This also will mean that I can't exactly mirror this pattern going forward, so that kind of sucks because it makes things a little bit more complicated, but that's okay. In light of that, I think for the sake of time saving, I might just continue with a paper mock-up for this one, which is not exactly the most advisable thing, but it's my channel and it's also my consequences. Now this might seem a little unconventional, but I usually make my corsets like this out of a base of painting canvas because I'm gonna put some craft foam over all of this later to do all the detailing and the sculpting, and I need something a little bit more stable for all of that to be glued onto. So now I need to cut all of this out and sew it up. Now I need to glue these pieces together. That needs to happen in patterning phase is to make a base for the clicker mask to eventually sit on top of, just something that I can reliably get onto my face over and over again and maybe potentially still see out of. I haven't exactly figured out that part yet, because if I can't see out of this thing, that is going to make everything definitely pretty complicated, but also it's a clicker. That's sort of the point. At the very least, I might have to fudge the design so it can at least go like this and then see down. I don't know. How I think I'm going to do the mask base is I have some Warbler scraps that I think I'm going to try and shape into just like a general domino mask shape, then maybe put some of that over the top of the head, sort of like a headband to keep it on, and then maybe make some straps to go around the ears. So I'm gonna have to kind of just get in here and see what actually works for the process best. I think I'm just gonna start mocking it up and see what actually stays on my head, because that is the main goal here.
To begin patterning my mock-up, I grabbed some masking tape and started covering the eye region of my foam head in a layer of that so that I could then draw a domino mask shape on top of that. I could then take that off and stick it to a layer of foam, and I had the general shape that I needed. After cutting that out, I heated up a bunch of Warbler scraps that I had on hand and began covering the mask in a layer of that to give it more structure and stability, and using thermoplastic also allowed me to shape it to the head really easily. From there, I stuck some twisted galvanized wire across the top of the head, covered that in some thermoplastic, and then just started adding a bunch of thermoplastic scraps to the forehead. I used a couple of spare zip ties that I had on hand. I added a piece that goes around my nose that I can add teeth to later. I tried adding Warbler teeth here, but they looked terrible, so I'm not going to end up keeping those in the end. After about 12 more zip ties, I had nightmare fuel in the form of a functional mask base.
Alright, I do look like a killer from a slasher film, and I'm not entirely sure what I think of the teeth so far, but we do at least have a mask base that I think is going to be usable. Needs a little bit more work so that it actually stays on, but I think I can at the very least begin actually building on this. I'm gonna take it off. I can't even look at myself wearing this thing anymore. I think now is a good time to actually start covering it up. I'm of course going to do this the same way I do it all the time. My beautiful foam clay. I have so many mushrooms to make in order to make this as detailed as I want to make it, but thankfully I do have some examples on hand because I made this the other week and I didn't use all of the mushrooms that I made. So basically the exact mushrooms that I need, but I do want to make sure that I sculpt some cordyceps in addition to these. And I also probably just want to make some like other generic looking shelf fungi like I have in here. Some other nasty fungus looking stuff. So I, for the rest of the night, am probably just going to start sculpting and sculpt until I run out of clay. So I think for now I'm also going to start building out the base of the mask with a couple of other things. I might experiment a little bit with just like some craft foam, but I also do have a lot of reference on Pinterest of people who have made their own like clicker cosplays or clicker masks, so I'm going to be referencing these a lot to figure out what did other people do and can I steal your methods. So someone just woke up from a nap. Let's see. So, hey, no, I need feedback. The only way to find out if what I've done is truly cursed is to assess it with a pure being. Okay, wow, she really doesn't want to give it a chance at all. That can't be a good sign. I'm sorry for what I did, like the most crucial part of the design. Where are you going? You better not be getting a mind of your own. That's not going to end well. Go over there, and you know what? Also, don't even look at me. So this is where I am with my clicker mask by the end of the night, and I think it's turning out pretty good. It's been a little bit tricky to figure out how to form all of these, I don't even know what to call them, fungi slabs. It's a very technical term. I did end up using a couple of different methods just to get the base flow down and start trying to establish some of these forms, but the one I used the most was just like these little cut up pieces of foam that I heated a little bit and carved into a bit. They ended up holding the shape really, really well, and I think once my foam clay mushrooms dry, those will stack on top of these really nicely. But for now, I am out of foam clay, so I think I'm going to call it a night. So last night I expanded my forces. I sculpted all of this out of an entire container of foam clay, so I have a lot of mushrooms to work with, but I probably will do even more, honestly. The corset is going to need a ton of detail, so I'll probably go and sculpt even more of those tonight. Also, speaking of corset, the corset itself is now also fully sewn up. I basically did this mostly off camera because it's a bit of an annoying, boring process. It's literally just sewing panels together and then sewing down the seam allowances so that the messiness is sort of controlled and it holds its shape. You can see how messy this is on the inside, but it's the inside, so I don't care what it looks like. I'm pretty close to being done with the corset base. I just need to install closures at this point before I can actually get to the fun part. I just want to get to the fun part right now, but for closures, I of course have a busk here that I'm going to put in and grommets down the back so that I can adjust the size a little bit. All of this stuff is of course super boring, so I'm going to go and take care of this stuff off camera real quick so that I can actually take a wood burning tool to the outside of this corset. Okay, base corset is now fully sewn and assembled. I have all of my closures in there. I got my busk installed. Now, I did have to fudge this a little bit by using glue. This busk was installed with barge cement because I was trying to sew it in my sewing machine and it really didn't like the shenanigans that I was putting it through, but that's okay. It seems to be holding up pretty well actually. I also had to cut down the back a little bit because I made it slightly too big. So anyways, it's time for the long-awaited fun part. I'm gonna start drawing on top of this to figure out where I want to put everything, sculpting on top of it, decorating it. I'm now just gonna have a fun time because this is what I've been wanting to do all week. Okay, I think I am finally done with my mask for the most part, at least until I start painting and adding like a little bit more detail, but I am so happy with how this is coming along. It's definitely like my own interpretation of a clicker. I know that normally all of the shelf fungi or whatever it is coming out are a little bit like thicker and chunkier, but I just wanted to give it a little bit more of my own twist here. And I'm also just a really big fan of the hyper detail, so some of this is inspired by what they did on the show. So I kind of tried to find a happy medium between that and the clickers in the game, and I also went in and added a couple of other different kinds of fungi, these little like spore looking fellas, which I think I want to add even more of. Of course, actual little cordyceps growing out of here, which I think are definitely a lot more common on the stalker designs. I had to do it because maximalism. Little bit of a side note, like I said, I do not like how the teeth I initially sculpted are coming out, so I still have to do something about that, but I did thankfully plan ahead with the solution. I got some fake dentures to put in here. I'm very excited for these. They look entirely too realistic. It's gonna be so beautiful. Can you visualize it? Are you seeing the vision? So now that this is not causing me anxiety, it is now time to switch gears and start sculpting onto the corset. All right, so if I'm gonna put the rib cage on this side, let me just like sketch out quickly where the general rib cage would be. Maybe this shape. Just a little bit of like corpse bride energy going on. I have some areas where she's just not looking too good. So put the hip bone about here. I feel like that is generally pretty good. For the gore, I don't want to go overboard because that's not what clickers look like. Also, the executive producer stole the backside of my seat because she got sick of me like moving around and getting up. She had been sitting in my lap and then she absolutely noped out of that. Anyways, now I am going to take my foam clay and start sculpting onto this, trying to add some depth, trying to give these wounds a little bit of a border. See if I can get it to blend into the base of the corset. Never done this before, so I don't know how it's gonna work, but we're gonna give it a shot. Okay, after only about an hour, this is where I am. I'm pretty happy with how it's coming out. I'm honestly surprised at the foam clay with the detail fidelity so far, but we're gonna see how this goes after it dries. I've been trying to add like a lot of just flesh texture in here, and then also just some like drippy, droopy shelf fungi coming down, just trying to make it look real textured and nasty. I especially love how these guys look. I really hope that they hold up in the drying process. They're already trying to droop. Please don't droop. I've done very similar things in the hip area. I've also kind of made it go towards the back, sort of to highlight where the hip seam would be in a corset if this was like fully boned. Turns out I really like sculpting nastiness, and I also have like a protruding pelvis. Probably not the most anatomically correct, but you know what? It's fine. I think it gets the job done.
The next day after all of that was dry, I took the corset outdoors to do a little bit of detailing with my wood burning tool. This is the reason why I wanted a layer of foam on the outside of the corset in the first place. It both provides a good surface for the foam clay to cling onto and then allows me to carve detail into it. Usually whenever I do this, I'm trying to achieve some kind of specific texture like bark or veins in a leaf or some other organic texture like that. But here instead I'm really just trying to make the corset look worn, trying to make it look like the fibers of the fabric are slowly wearing down and rotting away. I'm also trying to make it look a little bit like the fungus has borne into the fabric itself and trying to like grow out from inside the corset. So I'm really just trying to make it gross, and I'm using my intuition and general artistic eye to decide where those patches of nastiness will go. Once I was all done carving, I was finally able to give the corset a base coat of a beige paint and primer. That way I could just get an even tone to work on top of for the painting phase. And I did the same for the mask so that the base I was was working on top of wasn't just so pure white. Also, have you been wondering how I made this giant mushroom army? Let me actually show you that real quick.
All I've been doing is taking a glob of clay and kind of flattening it out on a surface like parchment paper. And then I've been using this sculpting tool. It's got kind of like the bristly end to it. And I just go and lay texture into this like crazy. And I'm also allowing the bristles on this to kind of catch the clay and pull it in interesting ways. That's what's creating those little weird pockets of texture that kind of make it look like a really nasty piece of fungus. When I'm done with it, I have a piece that looks a little bit like this. For these fellas, I don't know how much you can see the texture on there. It is very much the same technique. Just roll out a little ball of foam clay and then take this tool and just lay texture into it. And you end up with this little spore-looking fella. For my cordyceps, it is exactly as simple as it looks. Just take a little bit of clay, and then I just roll out a noodle. It's a little bit bulkier on one end, pretty thin on the other end, and then I just kind of give it a weird, snaky little shape. And there we have it, cordyceps. And for my shell fungi, I know I've shown this 1,000 times, but really, really quick, you take clay, you make pancake that's a little bit wider on one side, like so. You take sharp tool and then carve grooves into said pancake. Sometimes I'll kind of like mess up the edges a little bit. Sometimes I'll like throw a couple of holes in there just to show like wear and tear. And there it is. This is what I made all of those mask pieces out of.
Now, go forth and make your very own mushroom army.
So for the skirt part of this, I'm just going to use a bunch of different scrap fabrics I have so that they don't go to waste, and I can kind of just make an amalgamation of spooky cloth that kind of looks like it could have been a skirt and then got like really stained up. I don't know exactly what this is going to look like because it's really just going to depend on what I happen to have around and what like works well together. So let's go raid my stash. This is the most egregious scrap box in my possession currently. I probably have some stuff in here that would work well. Right on top, we've got a lot of pink. This is not the moment for this. Little bits like this, I feel like could work well. Could look like blood-stained cloth. It's also nice because I literally would never be able to use this piece for anything else. It's a little too far gone, so maybe that. Got some greens, more red bits. Actual Halloween spooky cloth. Brocade looking stuff. Bunch of sort of white translucent fabrics. I think this is a lining for something. This is cloth that I've used for mock-ups. This could work. All right, this is my nasty scrap pile so far. How I think I'm going to assemble some of this together is I might sew some of it, but honestly, this entire project is just supposed to look nasty and disgusting and like it's been rotting away in an apocalypse for over 20 years. So I think hot glue is just gonna do the trick for some of this. I just want to weather all this up and like make it look really, really nasty. So in the end, I don't even think you're gonna notice that there's hot glue there. So now a couple of things need to happen at once before I get ready and start painting this stuff. I have skin tone gloves and tights that I now need to dye and make them look really gross, like rotting flesh somehow. I also have spooky sharp nails that I want to glue onto the fingers. I also have my disgusting skirt pieces to worry about, and I also need to paint and weather those, so I'm gonna try to do all of those little things, basically all at once, mainly using a combination of probably hot water and airbrush paint, because that has worked well for dyeing synthetics before. I dyed some lace that I had purple this way back in October, and just like the heat I think makes the pigment cling to the fibers pretty well. And also I guess it's the acrylics in the paint, something science, chemicals. I could just get synthetic fabric dye honestly, but instead I'm gonna take this pot. Beautiful. I now have a pot of pretty hot water. I'm thinking I'm kind of gonna do a dunk for the base coat because I know this method doesn't dye things very evenly, and that is kind of the effect that I'm going for here. So I'm gonna put just like some nasty greens in here, little yellow ochre. The craft store had a massive sale on airbrush paint. So I got some new toys for this video. Did I get another camera on this? It looks like I'm doing one of those acrylic the dip videos. Hold on. Just making some like Nickelodeon slime in here, it looks like. Add just a tiny bit of black. Just throw a little bit of yellow in there. Okay, dinner's ready. I have absolutely no idea how this process is going to take on these like spandex blend synthetic fabrics. So I'm gonna try the tights first because these are thermal, so they're like fleece lined and they might hold up to my hijinks a little bit better, hopefully. There's no turning back now. Just straight up black. Look at how beautiful that is. Wow. Some of you guys are gonna be like, airbrush paint isn't for that. Well, it is today. Oh yeah, there it is. Well, the material seems to be holding up to my shenanigans just fine, so that's good. I'm gonna try some technique. Right, let's now try some gloves and just throw it in there. These are looking pretty good. The gloves especially got like real green and sort of gross looking. The tights still need a little bit of work, but I can go in and actually do that with the airbrush in a little bit. What I've been doing while those were in the dye pot is just gluing together a bunch of scrap fabrics. I tried to take footage of this, but my camera doesn't like the fluorescent lighting in here. I've mostly just been putting hot glue around here at the top and letting all these strips of fabric hang down. And I've been doing this in a couple of different sections so that I can glue it at different areas of the corset, almost as if like some areas of the skirt have completely like rotten off. I've also started dribbling some of my green dye a couple of places here, just start weathering it up and making it look nasty. What I'm trying to go for here is making it look like the top layer of the gown has like really rotten away and all of the like linings and petticoats inside have just gotten ripped and stripped down over time.
One of my favorite things about weathering and aging costumes is that it's such a big visual storytelling component. When you think about weathering, you have to think about where things would naturally become weathered and worn down over time. So for this clicker, I was thinking a lot about how an unwieldy skirt would probably get torn and shredded up in the course of trying to bite and infect other humans, scrounge around in difficult terrain. That means the bottom of the skirts are also probably going to collect a lot of dirt and grime. She's probably waded through like sewers and nasty water at some point, so I'm trying to stain it to look like that in a lot of ways. In The Last of Us, things also catch on fire a lot with the use of Molotov cocktails and such. So I also used a lot of old spray paint that I had on hand to not only add different gradation of like dirt and stains and stuff like that, but I also tried to make it look like the fabric was tarnished and burned in a couple of places. Once my gloves and tights were dry, they also got hit with a little bit of that spray paint to add a bit more tonal variation and darkness to the colors. And this is the dye result I was able to get with the gloves. I'm really pleased with how this came out. And once my skirt pieces were dry to make it functional, I just took some ribbon and hot glued the pieces onto it. The skirt I came up with is definitely a good bit bigger than the one in my concept art, but I liked that it used up so much of my scrap fabric. What on earth have I done?
Good God.
See, I'm gonna have to really cover some of this up because that just looks like meat.
Whoa, that's like an axe wound to the head.
Yeah.
Dude.
That just...
Oh, God.
Oh, it's disgusting.
That's vile.
What?
I love that.
Okay, so I have just been painting away today. I have a lot of the base painting done for all of my fungus here. Corset is coming along. Pretty much all of the base painting done with this as well. And also, wow, oh boy, does that look absolutely disgusting. Equally disgusting. My clicker mask is also coming along. I mean, Woof. But I think it's turning out really good so far. This is pretty much all of the base painting done for this as well, and most of the other stuff is going to be like hand painting and detailing. So next I can't really do a whole lot until I get all of these pieces assembled and glued onto the corset and this, and also on like my gloves, my tights, because the paint job is going to depend on the positioning with all of that. So now I'm going to start gluing that stuff on and blending it into the corset and the mask and the tights a little bit. This is my reference image for my clicker aesthetic. Hopefully I can get kind of close to this.
Once my fungi were all glued on, I needed a way to blend them in and cover up some of the seams from the hot glue. So I ripped up some cotton balls and started using those pieces as fake mold, and this really did the trick. It not only looks exactly like fake mold, it also did an excellent job of covering up the seams and blending all of my fungi together. When I was finished with that, I also glued on all of my little cordyceps, and I also glued some molding cordyceps to the mask as well.
Alright, this is where we are now with everything glued on the corset. I know it probably looks like so much right now, but I still need to paint everything, make sure that it blends in with itself, because it's a lot of orange and brown conflicting right now. But I think that I was able to get like the actual structures blended together really well. I ended up using moss in a couple of places, and then also these little foam pieces I made. But I also noticed a lot of mold on the clickers here in the Last of Us art book, which isn't necessarily something they ended up going for in the game. But I really do like some of the concepts where they use it here. It just seems like natural, something that might plausibly end up happening. So I decided to use a bunch of cotton balls to blend things in together. It really is very effective if you want to make like fake mold on something. I didn't want to go overboard on the mask itself because, again, not a super prominent part of the new clicker design, but I did add a little bit in just a couple of places to make it unify with the base corset a little bit more. So that's something I also want to try to do to my sleeves here. I, of course, also have to take the rest of my fungi, add those to the arms and elbow sections. I also need to make my little applications for the neck area and shoulders and stuff. But before I do any of that stuff, I'm going to finish painting the mask and the corset, get everything detailed, blended together. I'm so tired, but I'm also really, really excited because I am really pleased with how this looks. I can see the vision coming together. I'm on the home stretch. Hopefully I can finish this up in the next couple of hours. Okay, it's getting late and I'm losing the will to be awake, so I have made all of my little fungi applications off camera. I think I've used up all of my fungi at this point, so that's good. So some of these are going to be for my body and face later on. I have this little group here that's specifically going to go on various areas of like my neck and clavicle area. I have some nastiness here that's just little like open wounds and it's probably going to go around my like shoulders and chest. And then probably the rest of these I am going to use on the gloves. To make the applications for my skin, the base is just hot glue and it's a little bit abrasive on the end, so hopefully spirit gum will cling to that and have a pretty good hold. And then I just hot glued the fungi up on top of that and once again blended it in with just some cotton balls. After a little dry brushing, you have this, and hopefully it will actually stick to my skin. Still haven't exactly tried that yet. We're living on the edge as usual. I use the same method on the pieces that are supposed to go on the gloves, so they have kind of a base to go on that will cling to the glove, and hopefully these will stay. Again, haven't tested that yet, but I'm about to try to glue these on. Slightly more difficult because this piece needs to like curve a little bit, but this one is supposed to go like maybe about right here. I'm about to try and glue these on using these pool noodles as a base, and hopefully it'll work. I'm so tired. That worked. Way better than it has any right to. Oh my gosh, look at this. It worked. I have clicker arms. Oh yes. Clicker legs. But these also worked great, also incredibly easy to like move around in, very comfortable. In lieu of high heels, because I don't need to wear high heels in a mask that I can't see out of. I thought about it and I said, you know what? Let's be smart about one thing and not do that. So since most clickers just have their dogs out barking anyways, I took some inspiration from these pieces of concept art where the lady clickers just have sort of like bandages or wraps on their feet, and I just ended up gluing some like trim onto my feet, like so. It's not really footwear or full coverage, but I think it will do the job for my purposes.
Now that all of the costume pieces were painted, the last step was making things look even more gross by applying a very glossy enamel clear coat to just certain areas of the costume that should look wet. That meant areas where there are open wounds, on the tips of some of the fungi, really anywhere that should look drippy, and I regret to have to report that this worked a little too well. This looks disgusting.
The costume is done, but now it is makeup time. I'm really excited for this makeup session because I feel it's actually relevant. I usually don't do my makeup for reveals on camera because it's just like eyeliner, lipstick. But on this one, I can skip pretty much all of that. So I've been debating the whole hair or no hair thing for this reveal, and I know that clickers don't typically have any hair. I mean, their hair follicles are literally gone. I'm taking liberties here today. This is my own little creation, and I mostly just don't feel like putting my hair up in like a wig cap right now. I'm just gonna braid the back of it and call it a day. Good enough. I'm also probably gonna pin up my bangs so that they're not getting in my way whenever I like take the mask on and off. Okay, that'll have to do. I got all my little applications over here. I've got spirit gum and spirit gum remover. And then for other glue methods, I have a little clear Elmer's glue. It's non-toxic and people put it on their skin all the time to make those little like skin peely things, so I figure that'll be okay. And then the drag queens are also always using this on their eyebrows, so I figure I can also use this and people won't yell at me, probably. So I'm really not even gonna worry about eyes because they're gonna be covered up. I am gonna just make it look a little darker. All right, getting just a little bit stranger. I'm gonna try and like add shadows to the area where I think the mask is gonna hit to kind of add like a natural shadow over there, which will probably just make it look like without the mask on. My face is really weird and dirty. Trust the process. I'm also trying to make sure I get some like green, gray, dead tones in there. Skeletal cheeks. This is just gonna look very odd until I have the mask on, isn't it? Contour the jaw. We wanna look emaciated. We wanna look dead. Mushroom Man, gonna eat your brains. Now, my partner is coming over to help me film this, and I'm gonna look real attractive, especially when I contour all of the like really bony areas here. Giant contour brush. I am using like the cheapest eyeshadow right now for this, and I feel like it shows. I don't know exactly what my back is gonna look like through all of this, but it's like kind of not any of my business, I guess. I feel like that's a good foundation of like grossness, right? It's starting to look a little spooky scary. So how are those of you who care feeling about the season 2 premiere of The Last of Us TV show? If all goes well and according to plan, hopefully I'm going to be uploading this video the day that releases, so I'm definitely cautiously optimistic. I'm excited for it. I think they'll probably do a good job, but I know that some people just don't like the game anyway. So people who don't care about the story of the original game, because it was sad and it definitely just like took a turn. I don't know how you guys feel about the show, but I think the show does have like some potential to do some things better than the game could. The show, you can like just watch things happen instead of having to like go through the drudgery and the pain of having to play as these characters for hours and hours on end. And it's just, I haven't even played part 2 of the game because I said, yep, that sounds miserable. I'll watch a streamer do that. So in a lot of ways, this show might just like be a better format for the story they were trying to tell, but we will see. I am definitely sad that Abby isn't buff. I'm sure that it'll be good anyways. I'm sure that they'll like take care of it, but I can see how that could like detract from the story just because I like that bit of contrast between Ellie and Abby. I think that like that visual difference between them, because it's like they're visual foils as well as story foils, so we'll see. Also, we love a buff lady on this channel, as you guys probably are well aware. I'm excited to watch the premiere Sunday night. I'm not excited for golf. Anyways, nasty. I don't know why I enjoy looking like a sewer gremlin, but I kind of do. It is time to now see if my plan works at all. Did not have time to test this out because I was just like scrambling trying to finish everything up, but we're gonna give it a shot. I'm most concerned about this big one that's supposed to go on my neck. I really don't know if it's going to hold well at all, but we're gonna see. We're gonna test it out. If this goes well, would really love to wear this look to a convention or a run fair at some point, just so that I can shamble around and like freak people out. But I do anticipate the mask being a little bit of an obstacle for that. Okay, there we go. If I remember correctly, I think you're supposed to wait for this to get tacky. Okay, this one is also important. It's supposed to live like right here. Oh, that's delightful. Question, does spirit gum expire? Probably, but at what point, I wonder? Asking for a friend. I also have all these lesions that I want to put on myself. I have a couple that are supposed to like go down my chest, like my sternum is trying to open up and bloom some mushrooms or something. And I also have a couple of these fellas. Okay, moment of truth. I feel like these have probably gotten hopefully tacky enough. I did discover about halfway through doing this that it works way better if you apply it on both your skin and the individual piece. I don't know if that's how you are supposed to actually do it. Probably is. Probably is. Here it is. Here's my clicker makeup. I'm so happy that my little applications worked. I mean, they're not perfect. They're not the most secure, but it works well enough for my reveal in this video. I can probably figure out how to do some like latex Prosade stuff in the future so that this works a lot better and I could actually wear it for like an entire convention day. But this, I think, is pretty dang good for the reveal. So I'm gonna go run and get in costume and I'm gonna show you what the finished product looks like. I am so excited. welcome to the end of the video. I just wanted to do a really quick wrap up about the project. I know this video is probably so very long at this point, so I'm sorry about that. Overall, I am extremely pleased with the project. I was able to achieve pretty much exactly what I was trying to go for with the mask and the corset, so I'm really happy about that. I really don't have a lot of like notes or critiques for myself on this project. I more so have like a list of improvements for things that I would want to change or maybe like tweak for the future, especially if I was going to wear it at like a convention or some kind of public function. First of all, the costume overall is a lot more comfortable and a lot more mobile than I initially thought it would be. I can move in the costume, I can run in the costume, which is crazy. Usually can't do that with costumes I make, especially corsets. The visibility in the mask isn't wonderful, but if I turn my head in a certain direction, I can kind of see pretty well. I would maybe need to take it out for like a test drive to see how actually mobile I am. One really great thing about this mask though is it is extremely easy to get off and on, so if I would need to like take it off and walk around for a little bit, I can very easily do that and just like put it back on if I need to take a photo or something like that. The other thing I might need to do is trim down the skirt a little bit and then also improve like my footwear situation. The skirt was getting caught on my legs and feet a little bit whenever I would film like the running scenes, and I wore like a couple layers of socks underneath my tights, so I was able to just like walk around in the woods like this, no problem. But the ribbons that I put on my feet did not stay at all because I glued them in a stupid way. I probably just need to get some like flat shoes and make them look clickery. The main thing that I would be looking to change with this whole ensemble is the makeup situation. The Spirit Gun method worked a lot better than I expected it to. Most of my applications were able to stay on throughout the filming process, but they did not like contour to my body very well because of course the base was hot glue. That's a little bit too rigid, and the edges also peeled up pretty easily. And the one I had on my neck, of course, fell off completely. It did not stay on for very long at all, but I mostly blame that on the fact that the strap of the corset was bumping against it the entire time. Had it not done that, probably would have stayed on. All that being said, in the future, I do want to try like an actual prosthetic application process. I'm gonna have to experiment with that and see what will work well, because my main concern is coming up with things that I can use over and over again. I really don't want to come up with applications that are like disposable. The other thing is makeup on like my face and my neck and everything. It's very minimal for a clicker. I think it works for this video because it's not like straightforwardly a clicker cosplay, like I'm wearing a freaking dress. But I think I do want to make it a little bit more clickery if I were to like wear it out somewhere or wear it for a Halloween costume. And on that note, I might add a lot more detail to the sleeves and the legs, because I think clickers usually do have a lot more wounds and fungi just growing out of them. I think this is a costume that has potential for me to build on top of, so that's really great. And I've really been trying to come up with projects recently that will be like a little bit more evergreen than stuff that I've made in the past, so things that I will actually wear and use again. I think that this project is definitely that. All I gotta do is take this bloody ripped pair of jeans, bloody tank top, I have a clicker costume. And when this isn't on my face, it's going to live on my wall. What lovely decor I've made for myself. Anyways, that was a really long ramble there. Again, I apologize for the length of this video. Yikes. Anyways, thank you so much for watching till the end of this very long video, if you did. Sorry, what's that? The cursed item says that it wants you to like and subscribe. Now, I don't know if I would take advice from this, but you might want to do it just so that you don't become cursed too. But as always, the biggest thank you for this video and every single one of my videos goes to my amazing patrons, and especially my executive producers.
Galaxy Stardust 035, Luxabar, My Name is A, Miss Furnace, Koichucks, Becca, Nylode Nom, Cyrus Orion, Jenny Craftsma, I Do TKD, Ren, Band Off the Yellow, Cloud Max, Velly Smelly, Stabby Horse, Shihibi on my GBs Till I Umber Creeps, Cardia X, Christina Kimtia Art, Lunira, Fiasco, Mossy Raven, Georgia Renfair Soon, I'm not saying that name on the internet, ABW Makes, Ice Kavan, A Wendu, Liana, Ermler Jean, Brian, Phoenix, PNG Not Found, Freedom and Gus Gus, Dodo, Zyle S, Agent Sketchy, Thea Maia, Lovisa, Eloquent Silence, Hypnos, Katie, Sweet Winter Garden, Gravity Drop, I Hang Out with Cats at Parties, and Bean the Bread.
Oh, that's freaky.
Very nice. It'll look good whenever I kind of like make my neck a little lazy.
Yeah, that's like the freaky part. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Like that.